Hello and welcome to episode 64. In this episode, we're going to go through our top 5 lightsaber battles. Hello explorers and welcome to another fantastic episode full of Star Wars goodness. As always, joining me is my greatest Star Wars buddy and friend across the pond, all the way from Kansas. It's Jimmy.
Howdy.
How's your week been, bud?
Um, well, my wife's been gone at the beach for the last couple of days, so you know how that can be. Like you're like, I got time on my own, and then it kind of drops off because like I
Yeah.
miss my wife, and so it's been all right. Lots of Star Wars stuff. I've seen Deadpool and Wolverine 3 times because she's been gone. Wife's not
Nice,
a fan.
nice.
I'll come around to my Force Encounters in a little bit, but yeah, it's been a pretty good week. I mean, other than that, how about yourself?
Yeah, not too bad as well. Finished some more books, certain point of views done, so I'm going to be moving on to the Empire Strikes Back one just in time for holiday, and we're taking that with me. Spending some time with the kids and that, because obviously they've been off school. I'm still working, but only working from home. But I was on quite a bit of Star Wars stuff actually this week. I know obviously the socials have been absolutely mental with some of the reels and videos. If you're wondering what I'm on about, jump over to our Instagram and just look at some of the comments that we've been getting just by posting up videos of Leslie Headland and just putting on some thoughts that we thought of the Acolyte. I mean, episode 63, if you've not listened already, get amongst it, guys and girls. You know, drop us some feedback. We've had so much interaction, good and bad, I'll say, but definitely enlightening. What do you think, Jimmy?
Yeah, it's been eye-opening, I guess. And like I
Yeah,
said, this has all been a big. I'm happy for. I'm sad that we're going through. I'm sad to read some of the comments we get. You know, we've got people who are hateful and people who are excited. It does kind of give me a eerie sense of what we're about to go through in my country. But
yeah,
yeah, I don't know if some of these people really mean what they say. If they do, I feel kind of sorry for them that they're. And then I don't know where people get the information they're getting. Like
I
they're
know.
quoting numbers and stats. I'm like, nobody has
Yeah,
those stats. Like
nah,
nobody like that information is not unless they're Star Wars insiders.
yeah,
I baffled. But yeah, we've gotten lots of feedback. We've gotten lots of stuff on our, we've posted a bunch of stuff with the lightsaber duels, which we're going to talk about today, and people are so angry about
yeah,
because you love it or hate it, like the acolyte stuff. The battles are pretty good,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
and people are like, "That's trash. That doesn't count." Blah blah blah. And I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I just as a grumpy prequelist when they first came out for probably for a very long time, I kind of get it, but I'm way happier now where I'm like, all right, I don't like them necessarily that much, but there is a lot of good things about them.
Yeah,
I just,
yeah,
people just need to calm down.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it,
been absolutely mental.
yeah. So yeah, it's been crazy. It's eye opening. I mean,
Yeah,
whatever, we'll see, and then we'll see what happens with the skeleton
yeah.
crews. Should be
But
fun.
it has. It's been fun and it's been good, and that's probably why we keep getting so many new members joining on the social. So as always, it's Jimmy's time to shine. Here we go.
Here we go. Here again, as I always do, preface this with a big apology to everybody. I'm not trying to mess up names. I'm just. But anyway, so we got Tig Collection, Super Dad CC, Nigel Bostic, David Jacobs, Matt Godecker, John Castaneda, Running to the Galaxy Far, Far Away. I like that. Danny Morley, Stephen Allen, Harshil Deepak Patel, General Spice Walker Cosplay, Joey McCabe, Star Wars Replicas, D_3 Rezo, Ryan Doback, Ferris Comic Corner, and Star Wars Jedi Council. Thank you all for joining us on our different platforms. Remember, we have, what is it, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all that stuff. So
Yeah, make sure you're joining, guys and girls. Get the word out there, share it out there. Like Jimmy just said, thank you so much for joining. It does mean a lot. Make sure if you can as well, please leave reviews on our Spotify. It really does help the podcast grow. Explore the Force, all one word. Get over on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, Threads, YouTube, and like, share, and subscribe. Again, thank you very much. Okay, let's see then about this week's Force Encounters. Okay, then, Jimmy, what have you got for me?
All right, so I got to play Star Wars Unlimited again, so that was a lot of
Nice.
fun. I'm still a little confused as to like, can you play? Was it Shadows of the Galaxy and the like Spark of the Rebellion cards together? Because isn't there like a?
Yeah, no, you can.
But then you had to like charge more resources or something because of whatever. I'm a little confused by when you play cards that don't match up to your base or your hero. So
Yeah,
I'm
the
gonna have to make.
colours, the colours.
Yeah, the colors are killing me, man. I'm not a
Yeah.
gamer. I'm not a tabletop gamer like that per se. I wouldn't say that I have a lot of expertise, but it's been a lot of fun. Eric and I played again. Um, it's been good, kind of feeling out what the best strategies are.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
a big thing for me this week, like I said on our opening, is my wife has been gone. I mean, but I've gone to see Deadpool and Wolverine like 3 times. All right, it
Yeah.
is a great movie. We're not a Marvel, but man, if you just want to have a good time at the cinema, go see this movie. Don't take your kids. It is vulgar. It is, I mean, super violent, blood everywhere, but it is a fun time as the Deadpool movies are.
Nice.
But it got me thinking because I came home from the first night and I rewatched Old Man Logan comic, Logan the movie,
Yeah.
and it got me thinking. I'm excited for David Mangold because he's the one who directed that, so I'm very excited about the way
Mhm.
he treated Logan in this, and I think we have a
Mhm.
topic coming down the line with how you treat legacy characters. And
Yeah.
it blew my mind that that movie and The Last Jedi both came out in 2017, and the difference in handling the characters mind-boggling to the point. Jack, I think I left you a 45-page message about
Yeah.
what we have to do and what we have to talk about.
It's some good points on it. To be fair, I'm looking forward to doing an episode on it.
So, but that was kind of my and maybe, I mean, is Star Wars
Yeah.
in trouble? Like, are they not doing things properly? I mean, do they have an agenda? Like,
Mm.
I think everybody has an agenda and stuff like that, but I do think I'm optimistic for
Yeah.
Mangold's. I mean, I always was. I want more Star Wars, but I'm real optimistic for what he's going to do as far as starting off. I mean,
Yeah.
he won't be able to go any further back than what he's going to do.
No.
So he's starting it all. So I'm pretty excited for that. And
Mhm.
that's kind of like a weird way my Force encounter kind of all over the map, but it kind of brought me back around to, seeing Deadpool and Wolverine, going home and watching Logan, thinking about that
Yeah.
difference, and then thinking about Mangold's um, his next Star Wars, which he should be ready to go because I told you earlier
Yeah. Yeah.
was after his Bob Dylan biopic or whatever that he was going to
Yeah.
start working on Star Wars. Well, one of the previews for um, during Deadpool and Wolverine was the Bob Dylan stuff. So that means his attention will be after he's done with all that. It'll be Star Wars. So that's exciting. How
Yeah.
about you? Did you have
Hopefully in
anything?
time. Hopefully in time for Japan, dude. I reckon.
Oh,
It's it's gonna be a
hi.
tasty Japan, mate. I think we're gonna get a lot of Star Wars goodness.
Yeah, only 3 days long. It'll be weird. It'll be different.
Yeah.
Long way to go for 3 days, but it'll be worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. My Force encounters this week, it's been a bit of an off, strange one. I was just cleaning out the garage with my lad, and I came across loads, and I mean loads of cinema stuff from The Rise of Skywalker, loads of beakers to The Last Jedi stuff, and also The Force Awakens. So when my wife used to work as a cinema manager, we got loads of Star Wars merch.
Nice.
Loads. To the point of I was like, why have I got like 10 beakers from Rise of Skywalker? I literally have that much. Um, so a little
Got any
clear
solo
out of
stuff
that.
in there?
Solo stuff. I think I've got a spare poster for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've even got spare Rise of Skywalker ones as well, like the mini
Nice.
ones with Rey, ones with Kylo. So yeah, going through that, and then that sort of gave me a bit of a kick to go and check out my Star Wars autograph collection. Started going through that. And then yeah, apart from that, managed to finish one of my certain point of view books and moved on to the Empire Strikes Back one. And something I will say with these certain point of view books, I didn't realise that Ashley Eckstein was a co-writer or wrote one of the stories in it,
Mm.
which isn't that bad really, to be fair. It's quite a decent little story, but all these stories, they do get your mind wanting to watch. I want to watch A New Hope now, because there's going to be people that I see in the background of like, I know what they're thinking or what they're about to go through. It's crazy how
Yeah.
it's all linked up.
Yeah, that is funny. Like when you see the R4 stuff at the thing, you're like,
Yeah,
oh, he's a hero. So,
yeah, yeah. No, it's crazy. Okay, so let's jump into this week's news. So this week's news then, coming from San Diego Comic Con, there's a whole host of new reveals. We've got loads of Black Series toys from Vernestra Row. There's the new Cassian Andor out there. There's also an Imperial Armored Commander, looks pretty sweet. You've got the Ahsoka Tano from Peridon, is it pronounced Peridon?
Peridia.
And also, that's it, Peridia, sorry. And you've also got the Dedra Miro from Andor series as well. And on top of that, you've got the IG and Grogu. You've got Basil coming out. There's absolutely loads, and more for the vintage guys and girls out there as well. You've got the Jetpack Trooper coming. Thrawn's out there on the way. More Ahsoka goodness. You've actually got Cobb Vanth come in as well, which looks pretty sweet, and a nice little box of the Blurg and the Mandalorian. And also, not forgetting as well, you've got the Armorer's Forge playset on the way. So there's been loads and loads of reveals in terms of toys and collectibles for the Star Wars collectors amongst us. What have you got, Jimmy?
All right, so we're going to hop over to StarWars.com real quick. And we've got a ton of stuff that has, like we said, talking off air, not a ton of Star Wars news, but we got a lot of publishing stuff. So we scroll
Yeah,
down through this. The Acolyte, the Wayseeker, Justina Ireland, she's written a ton of great stuff for the High Republic. And, obviously the cover's not final, but you got some questions about, what does it say? It's 20 years prior to the events of the Acolyte. So
yeah,
we've been talking about like what's happened, why is she like this? Doesn't feel like our character. We're getting more into that in a couple weeks. But so it's kind of exciting that the show must be doing okay for them. And I've seen battles online about,
yeah,
well, they're writing in books, so that means there's not going to be a season 2, but they're writing books about stuff leading into season 1. So I kind
yeah,
of tend to disagree. I feel like maybe it has been successful. It's really hard to know until we see some numbers. Listen to all the nonsense out there. Another book's coming out. Yord and Jecki are going to get a young adult novel. Now, I am kind of
yeah.
curious about this. Everyone knows I heart Jecki, but what are they going to do with it? Because her very first mission was
Yeah, it's
also
going to
her
be an
very
interesting
last
one.
mission. So I hope it's not like a romance between her and Yord.
Yeah,
That
hopefully
will
not.
be. I will be disappointed. It'd be great to get more Jecki, but I don't want a romance between her and Yord, and I don't know action wise what it can mean. Because I mean, they say in the Acolyte, I would have picked something else for your first mission.
Yeah,
So I'm a little concerned about that, but I'm also
yeah,
down
yeah,
for it. The High Republic comics will continue. Kevin Scott revealed the continuation of the comics even after the High Republic Phase 3 ends. It looks like we're going to be getting more stuff. And the Acolytes
yeah,
Cal Neka is going to
yeah,
join. Cal Naka, sorry, is going to join. So that's pretty awesome. We're getting these characters tied into the High Republic. Everyone's mad about not getting to see more of him, so we'll get to see at least in comic book.
yeah,
There's a one-off for Cal Naka. I think we talked about that. There's another, The Art of the Star Wars: The High Republic. I think I have the
yeah.
first one. This is a beautiful book. On here, it looks like that might be Bell's Edifar. I'm not sure. That's definitely Avar Chris and, of course, Vernestra Row there. That looks great. We got some art of the Acolyte 2, and we've got some stuff for the Insider Star Wars Outlaws. And
That's going to be
then,
sweet.
yeah, and I think you just talked about this one, the Vernestra Row
Yeah, and that's all the
play
collectible stuff.
action.
Yeah,
I kind of gave a little shout out to this stuff, I think, last week, but we're getting some new comics and then the Battle of Jakku, and I'm very curious as how this is going to tie into the Aftermath series because it looks like,
yeah,
excuse me, You got our main heroes. Luke wasn't really involved in the Aftermath series, and neither was, Han a little bit, Leia and them. But that looks like it might be Gallius Rex, right? And if you haven't read those books, he is basically left in charge by Sidious to put into motion the stuff that will get them out, basically the Exegol from the sounds of it. If
Yeah,
you sit
yeah,
and tie those movies together, so that's kind of exciting. That's going to be written by Alex Segura. We're getting, it looks like, graphic novels for the prequel trilogy. I think I first
yeah.
reported that these were going to be comics, but a graphic novel of the prequels. That's great. Good way to get more kids into Star Wars, because I got a lot of kids in my classroom that love graphic novels. We got some more High Republic stuff coming out. Um, and then, of course, the encyclopedia that we talked about, and made jokes about how many of these do you have stacked up. I'll buy the new one, give the old one to my nephews and my nieces.
Yeah.
And of course, we have a new Edge of the Balance, and this one's going to have Yoda. So there's a
There's loads.
ton of stuff coming out,
Yeah.
as far as publishing wise. So we maybe hit a little bit of a lull until Skeleton Crew comes out, but tons of stuff coming out for Star Wars fans.
Awesome. And that wraps up then this week's news. Okay, so before we start the main show, then, as always, we put out the question to the socials, and you in your droves have responded on mask, asking what was your favourite lightsaber battle. Now, over on Instagram, we had quite a few people all agree that it was Duel of the Fates. We've had Shane, Ashley Marina, and Kieran Ukulele. They all absolutely loved Duel of the Fates. Tony won. He loved Revenge of the Sith, Anakin versus Obi-Wan as well. Poptography, he said Maul versus Ahsoka during the siege of Mandalore. Ralph Fernandez, he said he's not a huge fan of the dance fights in the prequels. The lava duel lulls him to sleep every time. He does love all the saber stuff in the Acolyte, but if he had to pick just one, it has to be Maul versus Kenobi in Star Wars Rebels. Adam Isherwood, quite a controversial one apparently. He said the Stranger Fight episode 5 is a recent gem. Otherwise for him, it's Luke versus Vader from the Return of the Jedi. And Darren Briscoe, he's gone for Luke versus Vader in The Emperor Strikes Back because it's got all the feels for him. He says there's more accomplished fights, but the entire sequence from Vader stating the Force is with you, young Skywalker, but you are not a Jedi yet. He thinks it just cannot be beaten. What about you, Jimmy? What have you got?
Yeah, I've got a couple here. I got Joaquin, who says, I'm a classic Vader versus Obi-Wan. It was amazing as a kid. Kind of same things that we'll talk about a little bit later. Russell says, I liked Empire Strikes Back. Luke trying to use all that he learned and Vader just messing with him. But he
Yeah.
really did love seeing the green lightsaber in Return of the Jedi, and the black outfit of Luke's was really cool. So he loved that. Good friend Jared said, Luke Skywalker versus Darth Vader, Empire Strikes Back, scary as beep. Luke loses a hand. I am your father. Biggest WTF scene in Star Wars, maybe in movies. So lots of people second that. Um, and then I believe we got Kathleen and Lacey both said they loved the Phantom Menace. The music just took it
Nice.
to another level. So yeah, we got lots of people loving prequels and the original trilogy. So, and even some of the new stuff, it sounds like.
Yep, certainly does. So let's see then what the main show has to offer. Okay, so now it's time for the main part of the show. It's going to be our top 5 lightsaber battles. And joining us today is a man with more deals than Watto himself and a shop to rival that of Watto as well. It's Josè.
Hello
Nailed it.
there.
How you doing, buddy?
Doing great. How about y'all?
Yeah, not too bad. Thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate you taking the time to join us, buddy.
No, I really appreciate the invite, guys. I got the pleasure, the absolute pleasure of meeting Jimmy in person last month. It was an absolute blast down there in Texas, Dallas, and at Rebel Scum Con. I still have a hard time saying that. I don't
It
know why.
doesn't really flow, does it?
Right? So RSC, I guess we'll go. But
Yeah.
yeah, guys, thank you so much for having me. It's gonna be fun.
Not a problem. Now, if the listeners, I'm sure they want to know where they can find you, Josè. Where can they find you? What's your social media handles and what platforms are you on, dude? The floor's yours.
Absolutely, thank you. So yeah, General Kenobi's Bunker. That is the main YouTube channel. You can find me under that same name on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook. Now on Threads. As of this week, actually, I finally gave in. The thing just kept bugging me. The app just like, hey, you already got followers. I was like, how can I have followers if I don't even have an account? Turns out it's just kind of Instagram translated, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And the only cool thing I will say is that they actually hold your name on Instagram to be the exact same on Threads, whether you use it or
yeah.
not. So I thought that was kind of cool because I was like, I don't want to be like, General Kenobi's 2 or 3 or 4. I'm like, I'm just gonna confuse people. But yes, so now I am also over on Threads. Also on YouTube, we do have a second channel called El Búnker del General Kenobi, where we produce content in Spanish. So if
Oh,
that is your preferred language, or if you just want to make fun of me, fumble the words, go ahead and check it out.
Yeah, happy days. I'm
what?
sure at some point on this podcast I'm going to be calling Josè. So please, people,
No
if you
worries.
feel like laughing at him, I'm sure you're going to be laughing at me as well, getting his name wrong throughout.
No
Jose,
worries.
what kind of content and stuff do you guys like? For people who don't know, like obviously you have an amazing collection behind
Thank
you.
you.
So just kind of, can you walk
Please,
us
please
through
ignore the
like?
mess. Don't look at that back there. Yeah, so as you have said, I do have a spending problem, and so we do a lot of toy hunting. We do a lot of toy reviews, collectible reviews, that kind of stuff. We do, obviously Star Wars is our main jam. We do go into a few other lines like Marvel, Transformers,
Yeah,
that kind of stuff that we cover. But obviously, Star Wars is my love. And we also do content such as conventions, as we mentioned before,
Mhm.
interviews, and a little bit of the lore. I'm trying to do more lore videos because I feel that some of the stuff coming up is referencing, obviously, some stuff that was there before, and not a whole lot of
yeah.
people know about it. So I'm trying to create a little bit more content on that. So yeah, check us out again, General Kenobi's Bunker.
Awesome.
Awesome. So how it's going to work is obviously we're going for our top 5 lightsaber battles then. Um, we'll just literally go round. I'll start us off nice and easy just to get the ball rolling. But essentially, what we're looking for is why. Why is that lightsaber battle of all the ones that we've seen, red, wherever it is, made our top 5? For me, nice and easy. Big one to start us off with. I'm going for the live action TV series Kenobi. And the lightsaber battle that I'm talking about, of course, is Vader versus Kenobi. So for me, in terms of fighting, the fighting sequence itself was amazing, but it's more to me what it actually means. This is the first time really Kenobi gets to see, let's say, Anakin, who he has actually turned into. Now, for me as well, I wasn't expecting the outcome or how the battle ended, if that makes sense. I knew obviously that Obi-Wan would survive. For me, I pictured him running off onto some sort of starship that way rather than actually defeating him to an extent. And again, it's such a pivotal show to see the journey from Kenobi. He's lost all the connection with the Force to really ramping it up and having to ramp it up against Vader. Obviously, they have a few connections going into that battle, but yeah, the big one, is where he turns around to him and says, what have you become? And Vader's line for that is, what you've made me, essentially. And I absolutely love that. So for me, Vader vs Kenobi live action series, more about what the actual battle means is why that's going to start me off in my number 5. Jimmy, I'm going to be looking to come to you next. What have you got, mate, at your number 5?
Well, ironically, it's another Kenobi versus Vader fight, but it's the New Hope. And let me tell you what, folks, I have gotten hammered online because of this. We put out socials trying to get people's attitudes, and people just jumped all over me. One guy specifically, this is trash. They couldn't even do action, blah, 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 blah. You can tell he's not my age.
Exactly.
Yes, this is definitely the slowest. And I showed my nephews and my cousins who all love Star Wars.
Yeah.
Um, I showed them that remake, the A24, is it Studio
Yeah.
A24? And then they're like, wow, that's amazing. And I think it is too. And that's probably something we would get if they made that movie now. But for me as a kid, 1980s, 1983, I'm born in 76, but I'm not old enough, obviously, to see. Star Wars when it comes out, but it has been around for me forever. And this is my first lightsaber duel.
Mm.
And you think about, they're advanced now. People complain about the way lightsabers look and blah 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 blah. But this starts Star Wars. This is the first time we ever
Yeah.
see them in battle, and you don't
Yeah.
know. Just every time I see that, I know it's silly, and they're barely tapping because of they can't hit the lightsabers because if they do, they break, behind the scenes. And so for me, A New Hope, just when it was called, originally Star Wars, that first lightsaber battle, as silly as it is, as simple as it is, it will always be one of my favorites just for the fact that it's the very
Mm.
first lightsaber battle that we've ever seen. And so, and that's responsible for everything else that we have moving forward. So it'll be forever, on my top list.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Nice. I get what you're saying with the Studio A stuff as well, and why it would look better. I still think I'd prefer the older version, because it's not because it's so slow, but like you said there, Jim, it's the first time you're getting into Star Wars, and up to that point, me as a kid when I watched it on VHS, like my mind was going a million miles per hour. So just something nice and slow to slow it down a little bit. Like, right, I know what's going on here.
Yeah.
But yeah, great choice. What about you, Jose? What have you got?
So I'm going to give you a little bit of an insight, and I know it's probably not. It's it's not obvious, but I'm actually a huge Obi-Wan Kenobi fan.
What?
Shocking.
Okay.
Yeah, I know,
I'm
shocking, but
stunned
I
right
had
now.
to. Yeah, and the funny thing is, when coming up with this list, right? I did it top of my head, and then guess what?
Oh
All
my god.
five involved Obi-Wan. So what I did is I actually knocked off y'all's two fight off of my list.
Oh, nice. That couldn't have worked out any better.
Yeah. So I for all the same reasons y'all mentioned, I had him in there, right? And I was like, you know what, this is not this is gonna be kind of boring, right? Like if it's just kind of the same stuff. So I'm gonna try to mix it up, right? So let's say I slid in my number 6 and number 7, right, in the list, right? But I absolutely love those fights. And one thing that I loved about the Kenobi TV show, right?
Yeah.
And I remember back then because I was all in. Again, this was like a dream come true for me. And I remember episode 3, the first time they fight, right? Obi-Wan and Vader, and people were up in arms. They're like, this is like the crappiest lightsaber fight like ever. He can't even hold the lightsaber properly. Vader just mopped the floor, with him, all of that stuff. I'm like, guys, the dude has like the equivalent of like PTSD, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and what does that mean for a Jedi who can sense, so many things? Like, it's gotta be like 5 times or 10 times worse, right? Like, I'm like, what did you expect? And I kept saying, like, guys, like, we're not done with the show. Like, we're barely like halfway there. We're not done. Just wait. Sure enough, last episode blows everybody away, right? I mean,
Yeah, big time.
um, the interaction, like you mentioned, that was probably the best part. But the choreography is very nicely done too. Like,
Yeah.
the acrobatics, the special effects, all of it came together very, very well. And then everybody just kind of shut up, about about the complaints. So anyway, long-winded answer, but just wanted to let you guys know that you were right on the money there. So for my number 5, I actually put down Yoda versus Count Dooku in
Oh,
episode 2. And
Okay,
let me tell you
nice.
why. You can complain about the choreography. Yoda was CGI, right? All of that stuff. But as I'm more of a kid of the prequels, all right. Those are the ones that were happening, as I actively knew what
Yeah.
Star Wars was,
Yeah,
and the
same.
characters, and like the importance, right, of those characters coming out. So back in episode 5 with when Obi-Wan says, you got to go find Master Yoda, all this stuff, and looks like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
looking for a great warrior, all of that. That's all we really know, right? We just know that, oh, Yoda was revered, and he was supposed to be top Jedi, right, for a long time, but we never see it for decades, right? We don't know, right? We just take their word for it. And I remember on the promotional stuff, and back then the internet did exist, guys. We're not that old, but it wasn't as widespread, obviously, as it is today.
No.
But I remember hearing, the rumors that Yoda is going to fight in this one, right? Like Yoda will actually fight in episode 2, and that blew my mind. I was like, now that's it. That's all I want to see. Then we would get the little clips, right, when the trailers, like when he stops the force lightning. Oh my lord! Like I think people forget about that moment now, but
Yeah.
back then, mind blowing. I was like, I can you can do that? Like I it's not supposed to happen, right? And of course, thinking about it more, well, yeah, he's like the pinnacle of knowledge, right, of like force techniques, all that stuff.
Yeah.
um I agree that some of the choreographies could have been maybe a little bit better, but to me the significance of it was just that gasp when he comes out through the door in the theater, right, and everybody just goes silence, and they're like, I can't believe this is actually happening. And then he just takes off, right, like just off to the races. So for me, that's why just the impact of having Yoda, where before he was a barely moving puppet, right,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
all of a sudden he's like leaping around, jumping, using force push, like just going crazy, right. um so yeah, my number 5 is Yoda versus Dooku, episode 2.
Dude, when he opens up his cloak and he just puts his hand
Yeah.
out and the saber
He
flies into
doesn't
his.
even grab the lightsaber, dude.
Oh my!
Oh
Like
my
you've
lord.
never seen anything like that before. I mean,
Exactly.
epic
Yeah.
start to that battle. So yeah, that's a great one. And he just goes nuts, and people are like, "Oh,
Yeah.
that was him." Like he's just showing you like don't always, and it just kind of goes back to Empire. Like don't judge a book by its cover. So
Exactly.
good, so good.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Great choices for number fives. Let's listen then to our number fours. I'm going to start us off again, purely because I've got a strange feeling this is how it's going to run. But my number four is Dooku versus Yoda. Pretty much the exact same reasons. However,
Nice.
something that stood out to me as well when I watched it, and it happened at my cinema, was obviously people were going crazy when Yoda was doing his thing. But it's that initial scene of where you can hear him coming in with his walking stick, and it's tick, 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 and then it just drops, and then you're like, oh, and like we just mentioned there, he opens his cloak, force pulls the lightsaber into his hand, and it's like, oh, okay, what can he do then? And he is jumping around like a bad, yeah, he's everywhere. He's so fast, and credit to Dooku as well. To be fair, we know his. I'm sure it's mentioned before that only Yoda is like second to him, or he's in line with his lightsaber skills, isn't he, or something like that.
Yeah, it's like Dooku and Mace Windu and like Yoda, like
Yeah.
they're all kind of revered as like the best duelist.
Yeah,
Yeah, and one thing
and
that I love for episode 2 is that they actually started talking about lightsaber forms, right, or
yeah,
Oh yeah,
styles, right. Remember back then, because I don't remember that for episode 1. I remember it heavily for episode 2, because they're like, oh, Dooku uses whatever form 4, and
yeah,
Mace Windu uses form 7, and Obi-Wan like 2, like that stuff, right, which we never really had like a definition, right, of their styles, I
yeah.
guess, or their discipline. So I thought that was crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And we already mentioned about the Force lightning, but when all the pillars are coming down and stuff like that, and
Yes.
then you can see Yoda sort of struggling, and you're thinking, I always got the feeling he's going to get squashed, or that he can't hold that surely.
Yeah.
He does so well, and he's only defending himself, trying to attack Dooku, but on top of that as well, he's also protecting Anakin and Obi-Wan.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that's like you say, it's the first time that we see Yoda go ham. Apart from obviously Empire Strikes Back, he's nothing really but a puppet. But in this, he really does go.
Yep.
So yeah, for me, number four for me, that one, Yoda versus Dooku, Attack of the Clones. What about you, Jose? Let's try yours, number four.
Sure. Absolutely. So this one is one that I don't feel it gets enough attention, to be honest with you. So I wanted to bring it into the list. So for my number 4, I have Darth Sidious versus Darth Maul and Savage Opress,
oh
and
that's a
this is coming
Great
from the
battle.
Clone Wars. Um, that I remember watching that episode, and I did not think it was gonna go the way it did. I was
Yeah,
not expecting So okay, so let me little preface. This is when Darth Maul has taken over Mandalore, right? Remember, he
Yeah.
actually became Mandalore for a little bit, and he's making too much noise, right? That it gets to the point where Sidious is like, all right,
I
this
gotta
was
deal with
all
him.
fun and games, but now you're
Yeah.
encroaching on my plans. I want to put a stop to it. So I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that makes sense. But I didn't expect for him to literally get on a ship and go to Mandalore, right? And then he just
Yeah.
goes to town on them. Like he is
Yeah.
ruthless. I remember he comes off of the shuttle by himself, no troopers, no nothing. It's
Yeah.
just him. He literally force chokes two guards at the same time. Like get out of here. I don't even want to see you. And these are Mandalorians, right? Like these are highly trained,
Yeah. You know,
freaking like
pushovers.
exactly like super commando type of dudes, right? And they get tossed like nothing.
Yeah.
And so Palpatine, fights Darth Maul and Savage Opress, right? Because they were sort of a master and apprentice, right? Supposedly,
Yeah.
Maul and Savage. They were brothers, but they were put into that structure of master and apprentice. And Palpatine's like, nah, man, that's too many hands, in the cookie jar.
Yeah.
So
100%.
exactly, y'all gotta go. And but the choreography, man, the thing that struck to me while watching that fight, I was like, I think Darth Sidious is actually having fun. Like, I think he's literally toying with them, to a point.
Yeah.
Like, and watching it, subsequently, like a few more
Oh.
times. Sometimes I'll just put it on replay, just cause, right? Pick me up through the day. But there's, he's laughing like while he's fighting, right? And I'm like, this dude is just having the best time of his life. Like he's just like, I can cut loose, and I haven't fought, somebody in like ages probably. And one detail that I always thought was cool is that Darth Maul had the dark saber back then, right?
Yeah.
He actually uses it against Sidious, and Sidious takes it from him, and he just like sees it and like throws it away or something like that. I think he bats it away. I forget. Like complete dismissal of it, right? Fast forward, like 10 years later, and it's like the biggest deal, right? To have the dark saber, and like we have TV shows like revolve around it and stuff like that. I'm like, that's kind of funny because you can tell that wasn't necessarily the plan back then, right? um
Yeah. Yeah.
but again, the choreography, he takes out Savage Press, which is
With ease.
yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. Like I said, he was literally just toying with them.
Yeah.
So the choreography, the setup, and just to have like the regulation, if you want to call it that, of the Sith, right? Like I
Mm.
said, Palpatine's like, nah, man, we got a rule of two for a reason, right?
Yeah.
And you've gone like far enough.
Yeah.
So that's one that I enjoy
You,
quite a
you
bit
you
from
get a
from
real
Clone Wars.
sense of his power, don't you, as well in that battle?
Yes, yeah,
Because
And
obviously
also
that's
builds up. Yeah, it also builds up. Well, looking at some of our lists, we have another battle on here, but it
yeah.
kind of builds up why Maul is so angry with
yeah,
Sidious. You know what I mean? Because he kills his brother, he does some other stuff, and just yeah, that's a great
It's a great call.
lightsaber battle. So very cool. That's a great number four. Um, so my number four, well, I'm sure I'm going to hear boos from all across the world. Um, Mine is the introduction of the stranger from the acolyte.
yep.
I
Sick.
I again, I'll put out posts and I put, love or hate the acolyte. You got to admit that these battles are pretty cool, and of course, you can
Yeah.
imagine what the chat looks like on that. We don't
Oh
really
yeah.
respond to anyone negative or anything like that, but you, I, I'm still stunned by how that battle went. Um, it ties into the Jedi are their own worst enemies. I mean, Soul had a chance to finish it, he doesn't. But I mean, how we all kind of knew who the stranger was. Like we all,
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah.
well, there was there's like a 5% doubt that maybe it's somebody else.
right. Yeah.
Mm.
But
I did
that,
hope, but didn't pan
yeah.
out.
So like, I just think with a Cortosis helmet, not being a massive Legends, geek myself, which is, I mean, I think some of the Legends books that I have read are great, Plagueis and Kenobi and all that, but
Yeah.
not knowing what cortosis was, instead of like the rest of the internet, like freaking out, the cows are dropping, blah, blah, blah. I like, this is so cool. Like, what is that? Like this is new for
Yeah.
Star Wars. And then of course, just his, was it one versus what, like seven, eight?
Yeah.
I mean, you knew that all the red shirts were going down. You bring in nameless
He
Jedi,
killed
you knew they were
two
all going to be.
with one move.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
he's like shish kebabs those two, chops off their heads behind a tree. I mean, I think this in live action shows why the Jedi were so afraid of the Sith. Like these dudes are nasty,
Yeah.
right? Um, and if you think about like Osha's potential, I think she's way stronger than Chimere. Like she's gonna be nasty if we get a season two. But I just
Oh,
think
can you
this battle
imagine?
was awesome. If you take a look at Daphne Keene's portrayal of Jecki, I think her lightsaber stuff is really, really awesome in this. She's jumping around, spinning, doing all kinds of stuff. I think a
Yeah.
lot of this gets lost in the negativity of the show. And again, in a few years, people calm down. I think people are going to give like people like Daphne Keene and was it Manny Jacinto and JJ like their credit
Mm,
for how
Yeah.
great these battles were, and of course, just the choreography, and then
Yeah.
how
yeah.
they end. He turns Yord into, I mean, just I'm
Yeah.
like what, and then I still get sad in the inside when I think about Jackie getting three-hole punched, but um, just an awesome, awesome fight scene. It really built the character. I'm not sure if they delivered, on some of the stuff after that, but this fight scene alone, I think,
Yeah.
deserves its place. I mean, we hadn't ever really seen anything like this, so
No.
I
No.
loved it.
Yeah. For
Nice.
me, if we would have done top 10, that would have been in it for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Same.
the the dude headbutts a lightsaber.
So crazy.
When I saw that, I was like, "All right, I'm in." I that was nuts. Yeah, no, I agree. Everything that you said, the choreography was great. Some of the shots I do feel could have been better
Yeah,
in terms
Mm,
of showing off that choreography, because I felt
yeah.
there was a couple of movements that I'm like, the dude is doing like an awesome acrobatic and we can't really like see it because the angle
Trees in the
or
way.
the speed of the camera. And I'm like,
Yeah.
dang it, man, like I kind of just wanted like a steady shot, and him just go to town like in front of it, like don't try to follow him, change
Yeah.
angles. I know that's not how cinema works, but I'm just saying, like, I kind of wish we could see a version of that, like
yeah,
him just run through the whole thing, right? Like, so we would get like the full on show. But no, that was a very very fun lightsaber fight, one of the funnest ones that I can say from the Disney era for sure. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
very.
100%. That's a good one to finish the top four on. Okay, so next then we're going to move into our top three. Okay, so for this then we're going to start with yourself then, Jimmy. If you're happy,
Yeah, sure.
fire
Um,
away.
you guys are going to want to chime in on this one, I think, too, given where it's out on your list. But Duel of the Fates. And the choreography, everything like that's great. But if you listen to people, you listen to Dave Filoni talk about this battle. All right, so I remember, I've been open about not really liking the prequels. I was at that age where I'm like, well, this doesn't really feel like Star Wars to me because it was all shiny and new and it wasn't lived in like like the originals. And I was closed minded like a lot of people. And then coming back to Star Wars later and a lot of positivity, there's still a lot of negativity out there, but I found the right channels about being positive and things like that. And you sit there and and then of course you hear Dave Filoni talk about Duel of the Fates. And I don't want to steal everything from you guys. I know this one's important to y'all too as well, but um, just the meaning of this battle
Mm,
is, I don't think I have my number one may be more important to me personally, but the meaning of this battle, what it meant for the franchise, obviously it's movies and things like that, but
yeah, yeah.
if you're looking at this like, this is happening, like if Qui-Gon wins and Kenobi wins, like the whole story is different. So I mean, you
Changes.
kind of knew what's going to happen, but they just sold it. They pull you in, and I mean, what an epic way to finish off, the first prequel movie.
Yeah.
Um, I absolutely loved it. And I don't want to go into like a ton of detail because I know you guys have got this in different places on your list as well. But yeah, Duel of the Fates, and then of course the music, man.
Yeah.
Like next to the Star Wars theme, I mean, I'm not sure there's much better music than that. You know, I have a hard time finding a background piece that is intense and it fits
Yeah.
as well as Duel of the Fates does for that. So yeah, so my number three is going to be Duel of the Fates. You know, obviously the end of Phantom Menace. I just absolutely blown away. And then just think about like what it does for moving forward. Slices, Maul dies. Maul's gone forever. We're never ever going to see Maul again. People are super sad. Who knows what's going to happen? We're never going to see Qui Gon again. You know, and then just what it does and how it brings some Star Wars stuff to life later on. Absolutely love it. So that's my number three.
Nice, nice. Jose?
Same.
Okay.
So my number three is actually Duel of the Fates, Obi-Wan versus Darth Maul versus Qui-Gon, right? Or I should say Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon versus Darth Maul. And to touch on a couple of the points that Jimmy was mentioning, watching it in theaters, as a kid, right? That the double doors open, Darth Maul is looking down, right? You see him flip his head up and then like remove his cloak. That still gets me chills, man. Like that's still
Yeah.
such a like impactful scene. The fight choreography is great. I don't care what anybody says. That's it's really good. It's
Yeah.
really really good. And then so that's from the movie side, right? The music, you cannot mess with the music. The music is just perfect.
Yeah. Top
But
point.
within the lore, right? That is what's now with more hindsight and more stories and stuff like that. That is what some people refer to as the real birth of Darth Vader. Why? Because if Qui-Gon would have survived that encounter, the prevailing theory is that he would have done a better job at training Anakin, right? And instilling some of the Jedi like actual like core values. He would have been
Yeah. Yeah.
better at taming his like wildness, right? Or like his impulses, because Qui-Gon kind of had them too. Like Qui-Gon was not
Yeah.
a perfect Jedi by no means, but he was very devoted to the cause, right? So, and he knew that things were wrong. He didn't accept all of it, but he also saw the good in it, right? He also
Yeah.
saw the good that the Jedi were doing in the galaxy. So he would have been sort of like a better spokesman, right? If you want to think
Yeah.
about it that way, for why to stay on the light side of the Force. Then, of course, Obi-Wan, who was obviously inexperienced, he was pretty young himself, and all of that stuff. So, so yeah, so the significance or the importance, right, of that duel. Also,
Huge.
I'm gonna jump a little bit ahead, but it also influences my number one saber fight, because um Anakin was kind of obsessed with the fight between Maul and Obi-Wan, right? And that influenced some of his choices later on. So we'll talk about it when I get down to my number one. But I absolutely
Nice.
agree. Number three, Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon against Darth Maul. Uh, yeah, hard pressed to find a more sort of complete, scene. Again,
Yeah.
in terms of the cinematography, the music, and the significance within the lore, I think it's kind of a really really good example of what Star Wars brings to the table, right? Um, Details that were throwaways, right? Like back then,
Yeah.
characters that we thought were discarded, right? Like you said, we're never gonna see Qui Gon anymore. We're never gonna see Darth Maul, and lo and behold, right? I mean, Qui Gon, we did see a little bit more, but Darth Maul, come on, he became one of the, I would say like A tier characters, right, within Star
Oh
Wars,
yeah.
just from the subsequent stories that we got from it. So, yep, that's also my number three.
Nice. So coming in at my number three is quite a controversial one. Then, it's probably classed as a lot of people's favourite, but I've gone with Anakin versus Kenobi.
Nice.
Revenge of the Sith. Again, this is master versus student, brother versus brother. This is the turning point. This is where you see, a fully committed Anakin to the dark side, ready to destroy Kenobi. for all his deceit and his lies. Again, I thought the choreography was spot on for this. I did like the battles, the music. Again, did it for me as well. But just as well, the background, having this battle on Mustafa.
Yes.
I mean, come on. You got all the lava and stuff like that, and the flames going up behind. It is incredible, and it also just epitomizes everything that Anakin turns to. The very end bit where he's on fire. He's still surviving. It's just the build up then for the originals is set by this battle. I feel.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's a great
Also,
one.
what I will mention as well, because I saw this pop up, is a lot of people are asking, well, why hasn't Anakin got a red lightsaber yet? However, on the Acolyte, she turned straight away, but he never touched the crystal with his hand or any skin or anything like that. That's what happened pretty much in the Acolyte. So that is my theory as to why he hasn't got a red saber just yet. Or is it because he's still got a little bit of him left?
Because
I
he has
always,
comics, he has to go and he has to do some nasty
yeah,
things. The
I
site
was
was it
gonna
the
say,
second run of the Vader stuff. I think he
yeah,
has to do some nasty things. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Jose,
It
you can
took
talk
a
about
while for him to like actually bleed the kyber, right? Which
that.
was one of the complaints for the acolyte, right? How she just almost automatically, right, did it. But for Vader in the comics books, like Jimmy's saying, it took a little while. It he really
Yeah,
had to build up to it. And even like the actual process, like when he puts his hands on the kyber, even that took a lot, right? Like even that took a lot of energy and a lot of effort.
yeah,
Um, I honestly always thought about it as he's he basically signed the waiver saying yes, I'm part of the dark side now, but he
yeah,
hasn't gone through orientation. That's kind of how we saw it. Like this is his first day on the job, so he's
yeah,
just kind of flying, as he thinks,
yeah,
right? As his emotions are dictating.
yeah.
Timeline wise, I forget right now how many like actual days have gone by, but it's not many, right? We're not talking about
No.
years for sure. So I don't feel that he has gotten the knowledge yet, right? Of what bleeding a kyber crystal entails.
Yeah.
um you
Exactly.
know the I don't think it's something that's very like, how can I say, like intuitive, right? Like, oh, I
Mm-hmm.
gotta go do this right now, like the force is telling me to. I think it's something that you kind of force, right,
Yeah.
into it. And so to me it was always kind of like, well, honestly, he just hasn't had time. Like he
Yeah.
just hasn't had time. He's been running around, putting down the Jedi temple, putting down the separatists, right,
Yeah.
trying to make sure that Padme's safe, and he just hasn't really sat down with Sidious and be like, all right, man, what's my starter
What do I
kit,
need to do?
to be a Sith?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I
Because
think,
let's not
yeah, I
forget,
think,
he slaughtered a whole Tuscan village beforehand as well, and it was still blue.
exactly.
yeah, I
Yep.
think you guys are both right. I kind of, for me, when you talk about this bleeding issue, is like he's not doing this because he wants to be a bad guy. His motivation is saving his wife, right? His motivation is love.
Right.
Whereas, and I know I got some slack for this, but I think Osha's super selfish and really is Sith material. From a little kid, all she's thinking about is herself. So
Yep.
I think her
Yeah.
fall is quicker because she's only focused on herself. She lets her rage. Anakin, he wouldn't have been redeemed if he had fully gone to the dark side as well.
Ah,
So
Right.
it makes
no.
sense that it takes him all these battles and it takes all these different things. There's some wiggle room in there because you got Count Dooku as well. What has he done? But he's killed millions of people as
Yeah. Oh
leading
yeah.
this. So, but yeah, I think that's a great topic. And people are angry about it, but like, why be angry? Like, just
Yeah.
hypothesize, talk about it, like walk through it a little bit with
Yeah.
people, and it's fun on both sides. Like, we could, all three of us can be wrong, all three of us can be right. I mean, that's the fun of
Exactly.
Star
Yeah.
Wars. So, but yeah, I love
Absolutely.
Yeah.
what you guys said about that. That's awesome.
But
Very
as
good.
well, and I'm going to put everyone on the spot now because I can't remember off the top of my head. Yaddle, when she battles Count Dooku, his lightsaber don't turn red straight away either, does it?
Oh
I'm
man,
positive it
Dooku's no.
don't. No.
is
So
his red?
you know
It's
what I
not,
mean?
not yet, right?
No,
Is
his is still, was it blue?
Yeah, it's
And
blue.
yeah, we don't really see, I guess. I don't know if in the comic books, now that I think about it, I don't think so.
I don't think we
I don't
see
think
it.
we saw him actually bleed the kyber.
No.
um but he was, because at that point he was still hesitant, right? Like he was
Yeah.
definitely not happy with the order, but he wasn't maybe like fully committed, right?
No.
and Yaddle finding him out, right? I that just gave him the push, right? Like that's it.
Yeah,
There's no
it
turning
just
back.
sped things up a bit, didn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Okay,
Yaddle.
what we say, Jimmy?
Poor Yaddle.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, poor Yoda.
But man, that
Okay,
for a character that wasn't like super popular or super well known, that
yeah,
hit hard, man. Like that,
yeah.
they did a really good job with
It's
her.
because she's so small and he just seems vulnerable. It's like the whole Yoda thing I was talking about. You know, that
Yeah.
big pillars above him. You're like, oh, don't squash him. Don't squash
Yep.
him.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so that ties up our top threes. We're going to move on then to the second one in our list. Okay, who wants to start us off with this one? Any takers?
I can go first. I haven't gone first, so
That's right.
Go
Yeah,
for it,
go.
bro.
I'll go. So for my number two, I have shockingly one with Obi-Wan in it. This is the Obi-Wan versus Darth Maul in the Rebels show. So I think I'm gonna catch a little bit of flack on this one because of how short it was. And let me tell you right away, I remember watching that episode when it came out, right? And I was like, yes, finally, rematch. Waited this for years. I don't know what's happened
Yeah,
in between. They're both a lot older. They're both a lot more experienced, right? They both have a lot, riding in this fight. And in my mind, I was like, it didn't make too much sense to go like all out because I was like, dude, they're both hiding, right? Like Obi-Wan has been hiding on Tatooine for what is it, like 15 years at this point,
yeah,
a little bit more. Maul has been doing the same, right? Like he's just been in hiding. We didn't have much of Maul's story in that period yet, but I was like, I wouldn't go like totally like completely out disregard because somebody's gonna notice, right? In the Force, like somebody's gonna be like, yo, we got two masters like fighting each other. Um, and then the fight happens and it ends literally in a split second, right?
yeah,
And that was it. So I was like, okay, like I wasn't mad or anything, but I was like, that's very different from what I, kind
yeah,
of expected or even hoped for, maybe. But then Q, our good friend that we were talking about, Sam Whitwer, right? And Sam starts breaking down in one of these podcasts, sort of what the fight really is, and how visually we're being cued into Obi-Wan's journey, right?
yeah,
Every time he changes a pose, a lightsaber pose, I mean, or a guard, it's a stage of his life, right? He immediately goes into the over, the head with the type of thing, right? Like he used to do in the Clone Wars, right? When he was a
yeah,
general, when he was in combat, all that stuff. And then he's like, wait a minute, I'm not a younging anymore. Like I've experienced a bunch of stuff, right?
yeah. Changing,
And
yeah,
this isn't the way to go. So he switches to uh Qui-Gon style, right? Like his guard. And he actually baits, right, Maul to do the exact same move as when he took out Qui-Gon. And he's
yeah,
ready for it, right? And it's true, or I like to believe that it's true, that Obi-Wan has relived that fight in his mind, right,
over and over,
for
yeah,
20 years, right, or no more at this point, right? He has gone over every like movement,
yeah, 100%.
every lightsaber swing, right? What could he have done different? What could Qui-Gon have done different, right? So by this point, it's almost just like muscle memory, I think, right? Like I don't think he even has to
Yeah,
think about the fight anymore. It's just been ingrained in his like subconscious, right? It as one of his greatest failures. And here he is with a
yeah,
chance to not only redeem himself, quote unquote, but protect the chosen one, right? Who, technically he's talking about Luke. And so he's like, it's not really revenge. It's like I'm a guardian of the future now. Like it's not about me anymore. It's about the next generation, right? Who will bring, balance to the force, all that. So there is a lot that goes into this lightsaber fight. Um and so that really turned me around, right? That really, really turned me around into this scene. And again, it's one of those that has a lot of significance baked into it. And they're not gonna say it, right? Like you're not gonna have Obi-Wan saying like, "Oh, I am changing from my form, 2 to like form
This is the
5 or
movie.
whatever it was." Exactly, right? Because now I know what I need to do. Like there's not gonna be that kind of exposition. But again, that's the beauty of Star Wars, right? Like those
Yeah.
little details hint us at what's really going on and how that connective tissue, right, from the past and going forward to the future, how that sort of shapes up the battle. So that's my number two. Obi-Wan versus Maul, both old, in the desert, and I guess technically in the Rebels show.
Yeah. Such a powerful moment, that.
Yeah.
Absolute genius writing. Absolute genius. Definitely one of my favourite moments in all Star Wars history, that. What about you,
Yeah.
Jimmy?
Yeah, I will talk about it later. So,
Gay. Yeah, nice. Right, I'll
Nice.
go with number two because you haven't been last yet, have you, Jimmy?
I don't think so. Go ahead. Yeah.
Cool. So, my second one, again, this is quite controversial. And I've gone for Rey versus Kylo in Rise of Skywalker. Now, I know it's not the most perfect film, and it's got a lot of flaws.
Great
Personally, I didn't
fight.
quite see the issue with a lot of it either, if I'm totally honest. Um,
Agreed.
but this fight for me, I thought was incredible because they've been chasing each other down. It's finally come down to this, and just how it ends is completely. It just catches everyone off guard. Nobody expected Rey to finally defeat Kylo and heal him. I
Yeah.
didn't, not at all. I thought maybe knock him in the water or a wave come and take him or vice versa, but I was not expecting what happened. The choreography, and you see the work and the effort that both of these people have put in as well, and the time, and to get fit to do this sort of stuff. The physique and physicality of Adam Driver, let alone Daisy Ridley. These are two. Not, I'm not going to say athletes. I won't say they're too far off, if I'm honest. Adam Driver's got a good background of being a US Marine. You know what I'm saying? You
Yep.
got Daisy Ridley as well. She's very athletic, in her own respects. So the speed, the intensity that they're going at as well, but the whole personality behind each of them is evident for the whole of the fight, and they keep it up as well. They don't really slow down at any point, do they?
Right.
None of the battles really that slow. But yeah, the biggest thing for me is again how it ends. It catches everybody out, but this is the first time now. You see that unique bond that they've got, that force dyad. Um, and to be honest, even though Rey defeats Kylo, in my opinion, I'd still class it down as a draw. I still think they're just so equal. They both just complement each other. What are your guys' thoughts about it?
I visually we've never seen anything like it. So I
Yeah.
mean, I
I was
loved
gonna
it.
say.
I I love it. I think that the action is great. What it stands, how it starts with her seeing herself as Darth, Dark Ray, or and then how it ends with Solo. I mean,
Yeah,
just bookend, and everything that it means in the middle of it. Yeah, I loved it. I think it was a great fight, and I always think about a movie when I walk out of the movie theater. How am I feeling right then? And I walked out of the Rise of Skywalker. Like, well, that was a lot of fun. Like that was,
yeah,
it's not a perfect film. Nothing's perfect, but yeah, I left that theater like I really liked that because I walked out of the Last Jedi and I was like, I don't think I like that.
Yeah.
Those are my
yeah.
first, my personal opinions. Go back and you look at stuff, but that lightsaber duel visually, nothing like it. I mean, you see the behind the scenes footage, and those actors were killing themselves to get that
Oh, big
footage.
time.
So, yeah. What about you, Jose?
No, I agree. Like you said, visually, I mean, as you were talking about it, I could see it.
Yeah.
In my mind, like for sure, the waves, the wreckage, all of that stuff looked amazing. That shot with that they do when they're both fighting, you see the lightsabers, and then a wave comes over them, so you just see kind of like
Yeah,
the glow behind the wave. I love that, like visually. I agree with you. I did not think that. Um, well, I kind of did think that she was gonna defeat him. It was kind of pointing that way, but to your point, I didn't think she was gonna just like heal him right, like on the spot
it's a
either.
shock.
Yeah, exactly. I thought he wasn't gonna get killed, right? Uh, and well, technically, I was wrong on that one for the movie, but uh, I didn't think he was gonna like die. And and I thought there was more to him, right? Um,
Yeah.
but the also the significance of the fight, like you said, this is kind of where he's like, all right, you know what? Maybe I just don't have to keep going this way, right? And then when Han Solo shows up, and he's like, all right, well, I definitely don't want to keep going this way, right?
Yeah.
And that's really the turning point. Um, so yeah, there is I feel that the sequel trilogy has a bit of a lack of the choreography, right?
Mm.
Of like the spectacle of the choreography, but visually it's gorgeous. I mean, that
Yeah.
fight, in Force Awakens, in the snow,
Yeah. Yeah.
in the woods, like it looks incredible. But also, I was thinking about it, in lore, right, or in the universe, who's left to actually teach them, like proper lightsaber combat? I mean, Snoke ain't getting up and turning around and spending hours and hours with Kylo, like training him how to
No.
fight, right?
There's only
So
Luke and
Kylo
Leia, wasn't
has, yeah, exactly. There's Luke, right, who started to train Kylo, right, and then it all came crashing down. So it's not like, not even Luke continued teaching anybody, right? Like actual. So like who's left, right? Like who can teach you the Obi Annie spin, right? Like
it?
there's
Yeah.
nobody, right? Like there's really nobody left, um, again, that we know of, that has those proper or formal like lightsaber combat skills, right, anymore. So I'm like, of course it's gonna look, not as awesome as the Jedi of old that had
Yeah.
30, 40 years of lightsaber training, right? I mean, these are just two kids trying to, make sense of what they're being told, what they're reading,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Whatever piece of information they can find, it's almost like you go to YouTube and try to teach yourself fencing. It's kind of like that, right, for them.
Yeah.
So I know that a lot of people complain about that. I was in that camp, like I said at the beginning, for like Force Awakens. But as I thought more about it, I'm like, yeah, but there's no masters left, right? Or no masters left that were around for the time of the Clone Wars and all that stuff,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
like lightsaber combat was super important. So it makes sense. It makes sense that it's not going to look as pretty or as acrobatic, right? But they
Yeah.
still killed it, and they're still twirling around, they're still jumping over each other, all that stuff. So
Yeah.
uh, yeah, and you're right. It doesn't get enough love. I
It
do
don't.
agree with that.
Jimmy, we're gonna come to you then for your second one, buddy. What have you got for us?
All right. So picture this: you're in Anaheim. You're having the worst experience of your entire life at a Star Wars celebration.
Oh snap!
All right. I thought I was never going back to Celebration after Anaheim. It was just wasn't for me. But one thing I did get to do was I got to watch the last 3 episodes of Clone Wars season 7 on a big giant screen with thousands of other people.
Nice.
The Siege of Mandalore, the
Yes.
Phantom Apprentice. I think it's was it episode 10 of season 7. Maul versus Ahsoka. Visually, I know this is animation. Like again,
Yeah.
I think we caught some slack online again, but obviously we all appreciate um, that it counts, especially when you think about the fact that they mocapped this whole fight uh,
Yes.
and just oh man, I was sitting there this morning messing around with it, and the shot, it's shot so well. This 3 episodes may be my favorite Star Wars movie. Like when you play them all three together on the big screen, but that battle between her and Maul, just phenomenal. Especially before they jump outside onto the they get outside of the big room, but when they're inside that room fighting each other, just the choreography, the music,
Yeah.
what it stands for. She's going down as allegiant to Anakin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He
Yeah.
knows what's happening. He can feel it. I mean, they're about to work together for a second. Like she's like, "Okay, I'll join you," and then he kind of
Yeah.
screws it up by saying like, "You got to go after Anakin or whatever." And I just think, I don't know. I don't know. Just visually, if there's much better. The choreography is awesome. You think about, I love watching the behind the scenes stuff of the actors and the stunt performers performing that battle. but I
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. The music, that window blows in, and they're just both standing there, and they both so casually like lighting up their sabers. Maul opens up. He pulls his over, and he gets it, and you're just like, oh my god, this is going to be epic, and it was. I
Yeah.
mean, it was
Yeah.
just phenomenal start to those last three arcs. That last arc of the those last three episodes, and just for me, I love it. I love it. I love it. And it kind of went back and forth between this one and my number one, just for um, the importance. But I'll pick my number one for the importance of it. But yeah, I'm hard pressed to find one in animation that's as intense, as
Yeah.
beautiful. The music, I mean, just everything, and how well they tied it in to what was happening in the prequels right then.
Yeah.
It's just, oh man, it hits really hard for us that when they start pushing stuff together like that, and I
Yeah.
loved
Yeah.
it, absolutely loved it. So that's my number two.
Nice. So that rounds up our number twos quite nicely. And now then, it's time for our number ones. Okay, so before we start our number ones, I'm going to chuck this out as a fastball because obviously we will concentrate on five. However, we sort of mentioned a few. We're going to go for a few honourable mentions. Just three off the top of your head. You don't have to go into it explaining why. I'll start us off just so you know what sort of flavour we've got. So again, just three straight off the top of your head. One for me straight away. Animation would be Ahsoka versus Vader. As it's coming down. Uh, when they got the what's it called now? The Sith. I forgot what it's called.
Holocron.
Holocron. That's it. Yeah. So yeah, Ahsoka versus Vader / Anakin for me. That was a big one. My next one is gonna have to be the throne room in the Last Jedi. Kind of not quite a lightsaber battle per se. I get that, but yeah, for me, it's gonna be Rey and Kylo teaming up, and taking out all those Praetorians. I thought that was absolutely mega. And then the last honourable mention for me would be Empire Strikes Back, and it's got to be
Mhm.
Vader versus Luke, where we really start to see a bit
Nice.
of Luke coming into his own. And Vader's taunting him, saying you're not quite a Jedi yet, but you're getting there, son. Uh, that for me would be my three honourable mentions. Jose, I'm going to come to you. What would your three honourable mentions be?
So I'm gonna cheat on my first one a little bit because it's technically not a lightsaber fight.
Yeah,
There's a lightsaber involved, but it's just too awesome. Hallway scene from Rogue One,
Oh my God,
Darth
oh,
Vader.
yes. I
That
told.
is, and I didn't put it on the list because it's not a lightsaber fight. There's no opposing lightsaber right to go along.
yeah,
But dude, I mean that thing just the whole movie could have sucked
yeah.
like hard, and those like last 2 minutes would have pulled it out of the fire. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying it didn't. I actually love Rogue One. Like I
Oh, I love
absolutely
Rogue
love
One.
it.
I absolutely loved it.
Um, but like come on, unexpected. Nobody saw it
Yeah,
coming.
no.
And they go to town, right? Like they did not hold back.
Yeah,
So again, kind of cheating a little bit, but because it's not a lightsaber.
That's why it wasn't
I
my
like it.
list. I had that
Yeah,
on the list.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Same thing with Luke, by the way. Just in the same vein, right? It's not a lightsaber fight.
yeah.
Um, but I'm gonna go with animation, and I'm gonna go with old school animation here. Well, I say old school, but they're older. Grievous introduction in the 2003 Clone Wars
Oh,
mini series.
was it Tchaikovsky or whatever?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Tartakovsky's.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. That last episode it was for that season, for season two, I remember. Season one, sorry. Um, and he just mows down Jedi like left and right. He's fighting literally with his feet. I was like, what is going on? How is this fair? Like, the dude's not even a Sith or a Jedi or anything. He's not even force sensitive, and he's tearing them up like piece by
yeah,
piece. Uh, Also, shout out to the Shaggy, which is the Shaggy from Scooby Doo turned Jedi. Like they drew
yeah.
him the same way. I thought that was super cool. They take him out though, like bad. But yeah, so that, oh my lord, I remember watching that episode over and over and over again. Like just
Nice.
the choreography of it, the flow. Um, yeah, you had like actual council members, like Kirimundi, um,
Yeah, yeah.
um, and I'm blanking out, Shakti, right? And they barely made it, right? So yeah,
Hiding in a
that
cave.
that fight, yeah, exactly. If you can call it a fight, because man, the dude just like
Yeah.
throw it down. So that's gonna be an honorable mention. And I absolutely love that animated Tartakovsky. That's one of my favorite Star Wars things like ever. And then I don't know. Let's see. Number one, I think Pre Vizsla versus Obi Wan
Oh yeah,
in
that's a good,
Clone
Nice.
Wars season two. Don't
yeah, that's a good
don't
one.
quote me on that one. Um, because that was the first time, first of all, that we see the dark saber, right?
Yeah.
And then it was to me like I was like, dude, this is the first time that we've seen somebody other than Grievous, right? That's non-force
Yeah.
sensitive, right?
Yeah.
Kind of hold their own, right, against a bona fide Jedi master.
Yeah.
And he when Obi-Wan force jumps, this dude activates the jetpack, so you see kind of like the counteracting technology, right, to like neutralize the Jedi. And I thought that was
Yeah.
super interesting. um Clone Wars was still kind of new, so some of the animation may not be like super polished as it ended up
Yeah.
being. um but I always enjoyed that fight. I thought, I was like, man, this is cool. This is why we see that Mandalorians are like almost natural enemies, right, to the Jedi. Like, and he's showing us like how good they can be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. What about you, Jimmy?
Well, first one's going to be Empire Strikes Back, and not necessarily the fight. Like I like the fight. My thought process is what is going through Vader's mind when he sees Luke pull out that lightsaber. I mean, it's been 20 years, right? And he's like, I mean, think about all the emotions that guy is going to be, and he sees his own light. You know what I mean? Like he busts out the Skywalker
Yeah.
lightsaber,
It's a good
Yeah,
and he's
point.
gonna be like, "What the?" You know what I mean? It's just like,
Where'd you get that from?
what is
Yeah.
yeah, like what is going on? How did you get that? And then he immediately starts thinking about Kenobi. I mean,
Yeah.
he's got this issues like, well, this is my son, like all that stuff just boiling over.
yeah,
Um, and then, and I just love it too. Like, and this is kind of like a not a negative thing, but everyone gives Ray so much crap about, oh, she's a Mary Sue. Like Luke Skywalker went in there and held his own against Vader after what, running around the swamp for a couple days.
yeah,
Yeah.
So I like the fact that it shows how powerful Luke is as well. I thought it was really great, and of course, like the step from you go from A New Hope to Empire, and you can imagine being a fan and
Oh
seeing
yeah.
that lightsaber battle off through what
yeah.
you got. I mean, you're like that's next level crazy. I mean, that's like Marvel movie good, at the time. So I love that one.
Yeah.
My next one's animation. It's Barris Offee versus Anakin. When those two fight each other,
Nice.
because I mean, Anakin's pissed,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that I love that about the Clone Wars because you see these little flashes of Vader starting to
Right.
come out
Yeah.
of him towards the end, and this is one of the things that sets him off the most. But Barris
Yeah.
Offee is not to be trifled with. Like
Yeah, no, she's not a
she,
pushover.
yeah, I mean, she took Anakin to the limits, and that
Hmm.
battle was really, really awesome. And I'm glad we had done some stuff with Barris Offee because I don't know if that one would have popped into my head, but you sit here and you watch
That's a
that
good
fight
shout, mate.
scene. Man, that is an excellent, excellent fight scene. And then anything, of course, with like Asajj and Kenobi flirting with each other the whole time. But
Yeah.
and then my last one is going to be and these were right off the top of my head. Of course, my boy Balin Skull and Ahsoka.
I knew he was gonna say that.
Nice.
Man, R.I.P. buddy.
Yeah.
But that the meaning behind Balin's conversation, it was maybe more the conversation that they were having while they're doing it, but seeing what was happening, that I think the fight scene was awesome. They really
Yeah.
played
The fight
into
scene was
each
good.
one's characters. You got to see that big giant broadsword that you can't use in Jedi Survivor to save your life in action. Like, oh, I should be more like Balin when I'm playing. But I love that fight scene. I love what it meant. I love the conversation it was having.
Yeah.
We kind of talked about. I think that whole scene sparked one of our first really deep dives into like um, Star Wars for us as a
Yeah.
podcast. So yeah, I like that one. That's probably gonna round out my top three. But there's so many good ones. This is a
There
really
is
hard
so
list.
many. There,
Agreed.
Yeah.
there's so many. Cool. So right then, without any delay, we're gonna go to our favourite lightsaber battle. Jose, I'm gonna start with you first, mate, as the guest. Take it away.
Sure. So it's already been talked about here, but Battle of the Heroes, right? It is Obi-Wan and Anakin, right? End of episode 3 in Mustafar. It just it it's still, I think, shot by shot, it's still one of the best lightsaber choreographies we got, right?
Yeah.
In anything really, of course, in live action for sure. Um, and it's coming up on being 20 years old, which makes me feel old too, but not the point. Um, and I remember watching that in theaters, and I couldn't keep up, with some of the movements. I was like, I don't know what's going on, but I know it's
Yeah.
awesome and I love it. Um, some of the movements didn't even make that much sense to me, like as fast as they were going.
Yeah.
Uh, the To me, I was super grateful that it wasn't a short fight. That it
Yeah.
actually kept going
Yeah.
as you think it would, right? Because they're pretty much both at peak, right? They're pretty much both at peak of their power, or their lightsaber techniques, right? So it wouldn't make sense for them to end it like quickly. And I remember back then, like some of my friends were like, "Well, but it's technically it's Anakin. He's more powerful. He's turned to the dark side, so he's got to be more aggressive, right? And stuff like that." I was like, "Yes, absolutely." But you have Obi-Wan, who has been trained longer, right? And who's been fighting Anakin, in sparring sessions and training him and all that for, like, what is it, 10 years, 13 years at this point? I'm
Yeah.
like, so of course he knows what his next move is. He knows his style, he knows his cadence, right? And again, if I always thought about it this way, if Anakin wasn't part of the order at that time, I felt that Obi-Wan would have been like the MVP,
Yeah.
of the Jedi Order, right? Like around that time.
Yeah.
Um, he's definitely not, he's powerful, he's wise, he's like loyal almost to like a stupid point.
Hmm.
Mm.
um and again, in terms of combat, I'm like, dude, these guys have seen war, right, for 3 years, like intense, like they're at the
Yeah.
top of their game when it comes to combat right now. So to me, it made perfect sense. Like I said, I was so grateful. That was about the only thing I didn't really hear much complain about back then, right?
Yeah.
There's always complaint, right? Definitely. Even back then, like I said, it's just the internet was not as widespread as as today, so we didn't hear as much about it. um but that saber fight, just the way it starts, and then going forward, like in the next couple of years after it came out, like seeing the behind the scenes and seeing that those dudes were as fast as portrayed, right? Like
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
were going 100 miles a minute, like they were just going full on speed. They've trained for so long, they ingrained that choreography, into their brains. And like hearing that sometimes they actually had to ask them to slow down for the cameras, that to me is like
Crazy, isn't it?
mind blowing. Yeah, like that to me is incredible. And just the dedication of both those guys to
Hmm.
make it look as good as they could, right? And they did,
Yeah.
like I said, they absolutely did. So that's sort of, again, the on the cinematography part of it, right? Just how well they did
Nice.
their stunts. And it's one that I find myself rewatching quite a bit. uh,
Yeah.
and also, of course, the significance, right?
Yeah.
This is before the Obi-Wan show, right? This is the last
Yeah.
we see them as, well, this, yeah, technically this is the last time we see Anakin and Obi-Wan, right?
Yeah.
And Anakin shines a little bit through at the beginning, and then he's like, all right, you know what, I'm done. I'm pretty much Vader now. So
Yeah.
he's gone, right? So they never really interact anymore,
No.
right? Like they never really see each other as Anakin and Obi-Wan. So I absolutely love that fight. It I don't, it might not be like the most surprising, choice for a number one, but like I said, I still, even with everything that's come out in the last 20 years, right, that is still
Yeah.
like my
Still up
favorite
there.
one. Yeah, exactly.
Nice. Nice. Jimmy, do you want to go or shall I go?
Um, uh, Up to you, my man. Go ahead.
Okay. So mine's already been talked about, and this is no surprise to Jimmy because that's all I go on about. So Duel of the Fates is for me.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not going to go through it again. All the reasons you guys already mentioned. I'm like, yeah, 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 yeah. But the only other things I'll add to it is the door opening, Maul being there, the hood coming down, and to top everything else off, the double bladed lightsaber.
Yeah.
You know, at that time was just mind blowing. And I'll just leave it at that for me. We've already said the significance of that. It could have gone both ways, the what if. But yeah, for me, the music was spot on. The door opening, Moore's hood coming down, and then that ignition of and it's like, oh wow, here we go. So yeah, Duel of the Fates for
dude.
me, nice and easy.
And like the face of the guards, they're like, yeah, they don't pay us enough for this. Like,
Yeah, we'll happily go around.
yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, no, we're gonna take the scenic route. We're out.
Yeah, R2 is no idiot either. It's like, yeah, autopilot, let's go.
Yeah, exactly. No, no, y'all got this. I got trust in you.
Oh, brilliant. What you got, Jimmy?
Well, I'm going to end, and it seems like all three of us have a similar favorite Jedi because Obi-Wan Kenobi is going to be in my battle as well.
Yes.
Um, and this one kind of changed me as a fan, and it's going to be Obi-Wan versus Maul and Rebels.
Nice.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff like you said, Jose, and it ties into like what you just said about Anakin versus Obi-Wan in Revenge of the Sith, and then you sit there and you think about the stuff we saw in Kenobi series where he was training him, he does learn, and always talk about like Kenobi not being the most powerful Jedi, but he learns from everything that he does.
Yeah.
I remember being disappointed, much like yourself, after that first battle, like, oh my gosh, why was that so short? This could have been epic, and I feel like it kind of, and this is like my path. I can either go down the dark side or I can go to the light side. And fortunately for me, I listened to, I don't know if you guys, listen to the Force Center podcast, but they had Ace Cabrera come on their show one time, and he talked about the significance of this battle
Yeah.
and how much it shows the difference between the light side and the dark side. All the
Nice.
stuff that those two guys, I mean, they basically lived a parallel life. They've lost everything. They feel like they've each taken almost everything away from each other. I mean, think
Yeah.
about what Maul has taken from Kenobi,
Right.
Satine, his master, like all these different things, and he shows up to take Luke, and it's just, I mean, it builds and builds and builds and builds, and it could have been this big epic battle, and of course they have it. It lasts what 3 seconds. It's
Yeah.
over, and then you have Kenobi who is learned, and that's the difference between the dark side and the light side.
Yeah.
Maul attacks with the same thing. He hasn't learned anything. His rage has blinded him. It may make him powerful, but he hasn't learned anything whatsoever over all that time coming back to life, given all those experiences. None of it mattered.
Yeah.
He went right back to the well. And like you said, Jose, earlier, Kenobi has learned from every single thing that he's done. And that's the difference between the light side and the dark side. And then, of
Yeah.
course, at the very end of that, Kenobi, who has got to be like, finally, right? I mean, you watch him take out Satine, his master. I mean, everything he loved in his life,
Yeah.
he still comforts him. He
Yeah.
still tells him, like, it's going to be okay,
Right.
and just, I was like, wow. And thank goodness for Ace Cabrera, kind of like with Sam Whitmer, for you, Jose. Like, I really think that this could have pushed me down the line of like that was stupid and I didn't like that, and it's
Yeah.
just from
Yeah.
not understanding. And for us as a group, it's okay not to understand things, and sometimes you need to hear these people talk about this stuff and see it from a different point of view.
Yep.
Because I thought this was going to be an epic battle. It turns out to be 5 seconds. I'm like, what was that about? And then you hear
Yeah.
that, you hear Sam Witwer. I think Filoni has some stuff out there about it.
Yeah.
Just embodies the light side versus the dark side.
Yeah.
These two characters. I mean, it is what Star Wars is, I think, for me personally. Like, and I know it's like the shortest, craziest, bam, done. And, but I absolutely love it. It just, I
Yeah.
don't think it gets any better than that. Um, I never want to see it redone. Like, people were like, oh, we're going to see it. All those rumors when Kenobi came out, would we see Maul and all this stuff? I'm like, nah,
Nah.
like, just
Nah.
leave
Don't need
it.
to see it again.
Yeah.
Can't do any better. Like, are you going to erase it by having this big epic battle out and plus the
Right.
desert? You can't have an
Yeah.
epic battle in the desert. Like,
Yeah.
just going to be walking across
Nah.
left to right
Yeah.
or right to left on the
Yeah.
screen. So, but yeah, that's my number one, just for
Nice.
everything it means to me too, because I really feel like coming back into Star Wars and things like that, that it was kind of
Yeah.
like I could have gone down the wrong path of being some of these people on social media and hating Star
Yeah.
Wars and everything. And it's okay if you don't understand something or it didn't hit for you, listen to other people talk about it. And that's the biggest thing for me about this topic is like just listen to other people talk and the passion. And I bet you,
Yeah.
for those people who don't like some of these things, like they might like these battles more because of our passion for them. So I think
Exactly.
Mm,
that's the best thing about Star Wars to me. So
yeah. Awesome. So that rounds it all up nicely. Again, thank you very much, Josè, for joining us, buddy. As always, we have like a little motto as our little signing off feature. I'll give you a few minutes just to think of whatever it is you want to say, and I'll come back to you shortly. To the listeners, again, thank you very much for listening to the episode. As always, please drop some comments, any feedback, and let us know again if there's any battles that you think are in your top 5 or anything you don't agree with. As always, drop them in the comments. For anyone that's listening to the show and wants to be part of the socials, you'll find us on Facebook, Instagram, X, Threads, TikTok, and YouTube. Please like, share, subscribe. And it's all explore the force at one word. Josè, before you give us our little motto, you want to let the listeners know where they can find you one last time, buddy?
Sure, absolutely. General Economics Bunker on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, now Threads, and also second channel over on YouTube, El Bunker del General Kenobi. So I'd appreciate it if you check us out again for all your toy hunting, toy reviews, collectibles, lore, interviews, all of that good stuff. We also like to go live at least once a week, usually on Wednesdays around 8 p.m. Central Time here in the US. And so, yeah, come check us out. The show is called The High Ground.
Awesome. Again, thank you very much. So from me then, belief is not a master of choice but conviction. Josè, what have you got for us?
I just want to say that we can all learn a little bit from Obi-Wan. He lost everything. He lost his order. He lost his friend, his loved one, even his enemies, right? And he still remained true, right, to his belief. He still remained in the light side. I think that's why he's my favorite characters, because
Powerful.
I try to draw from that, on a day-to-day basis, right? So
Powerful. Thank you very much.
yes, thank you again, Jose, for coming on. This is might be one of my favorite episodes. That just
I appreciate it, guys.
so
This
much
was
fun.
super fun. Yeah, let's do it again. Let's talk about maybe you hop over to my channel, things like that. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, we'll definitely talk again.
All right, and for all of us, we have spoken. We'll see you guys next week.